Hey everybody, this is James with CAD Roll Hunter, and today is part 2 at looking at my uncle's penny hoard, the stash of coins that he left to me. Today particularly, we are looking for gems in buried treasure. So when we last left off, we looked at a bunch of rolls that I had gotten from my uncle, mostly 70s and some early 80s, separated out the BU coins and rolled those up. And we scoped errors and varieties, and that was really cool. We had a bunch of rolls here from the 80s that I hadn't gone through. And I'm going to spare you the video that I took of going through them because we didn't find anything interesting. We found exactly what we'd expect. Some BU, 82, 83, 84, no errors, no varieties, but nothing really all that interesting. So instead, we're going to shift gears and look at some other coins that I've previously gone through, and particularly looking at some of these coins that were in really terrible shape. What we want to see is, can we find some treasure in the trash? Family legend or lore had it that my uncle collected coins as a young man and then went away to travel for several years and took his coin collection and buried it on the family property, I don't know, under a tree or whatever it is that you do. And it turns out that might very well have been true, because these are copper coins that would have been rolled up. The newest ones you can see here would have been some probably BU 1961s. There's still some shine on here, but you can see some corrosion and oxidation on this coin. There we go, get a better view of it. And that's what we have in here. These coins span the 40s and 50s up to the early 60s. There are a ton of them. I've gone through these in the past. I've separated out the ones that didn't have corrosion. Let's just dump this out so we can get a sense of what we've got here. 1950, 61, 62 even, some more George, 48. There's a 73, got a little bit of corrosion. I probably just added to these baskets when I found them. Some more George, 50. And you can see how bad that corrosion is, the 61. Look at that, eh? So it turns out he may very well have done exactly that. He might have buried these coins. There's a 57. If I look in here, there's more. Such a shame. More King George VI. 45. So I would have found rolls of these, 1940, just circulated. So these wouldn't have been, most of these wouldn't have been BU by any stretch. I think he just collected them, and just the conditions in which they were stored and perhaps buried were such that they weren't going to survive. So, you know, at this point in time, this is just copper bullion, so to speak, and there's nothing valuable or collectible in here. The real shame would be, of course, if we found any rare varieties in here that were, you know, unfortunately damaged beyond recognition, because there's a lot of early stuff that would have been really nice to have had. But look at all that corrosion. These rolls just came short of probably fusing into one big solid block of copper. So that's the story of my uncle's coin collection in the early days. I inherited it years and years later, but you can see that much of it didn't fare very well. All right, I've emptied out one of these copper cups here, and we've got something as early as 1938, and we have all of the years except for no 1943s and no 1954s, all the way through then from 38. So there's no 39 and no 37. That would have been the first year for King George VI. And pretty much everything in here. But we've got some 53s, some 55s, some 48s and 49s, so we can check for varieties. I found a few in here that really weren't as bad as the rest, but you can see that most of these are in terrible, terrible shape. And so we'll just keep sorting through the other 2 copper cups here and see what we come up with. I'm about halfway through emptying that cup, and we have now found our first 1944s. And we found a handful of them now. And we got our first 1954. And so we have one from each year, save the 37 and 39, right up to 64. But where I am right now is that there is definitely a whole stack of 51s. I think we have enough here to roll them up. I think we've got 50 so far. So before my stacks fall over, I'm going to roll that one up and label it. There aren't any varieties for us to find in the 51s, so I think we can go ahead and do that. Well, I was wrong. We're a few shy, but I could see some 51s in that cup, so I think we'll get there really quickly, and then I'll roll these guys up and put them off to the side. Well, in that cup we found a wheat penny, and you can see why I would have thrown it in the cup with all the corroded coppers, because there it is on the front there. You can see it's in pretty rough shape. Otherwise, it had some mint luster on it, but obviously didn't fare too well over the years with the environmental damage. Okay, well, I've stacked everything up, and what we're going to do is we're going to put everything in rolls. I've got some rollers over here ready to go. And but we'll definitely be looking through any of the dates that have varieties. So I'm going to start rolling them up. I think the first date we want to look at is probably the 1947 Maple Leaf. We'll just see if we've got some of the blunt 7 or pointed 7, just any of varieties in there to see. And then, of course, we'll probably just roll them up because of their condition. So I've just scoped all the 47 Maple Leaf, and all of them, except for one, were this pointed 7. So you can see the top of the 7 is pointed there. I only found one of the other variety, which is the blunt 7, where you can see that it's not coming to a point, it's actually cut off there. So I already have both of these in my collection in much better condition and not so much environmental damage. So these are all just going to get rolled up, but it's interesting to look and see what the varieties are. You can see how full up to the top some of these rolls are, and it's not that I'm overfilling them, I'm just putting 50 in each, but I think the corroded face of so many of these coins is just giving some added thickness so that when they're in here, they're just going a little bit over the top almost. We've just got a small handful of 1948, so we can check for any of the 3 varieties. It's the large or the small denticle, and where exactly the A in Gratia points. So we'll put one under the scope and we'll take a peek. All right, these aren't really easy to see because of the level of wear and corrosion, but this is the A points to large denticle. It's the common one. I'll throw another one up here, see what we get. And this is another A points to large denticle. That might be what all of these are. We'll find out in a moment. That's actually an A points between large denticles, also the common variety. This one here is A to large denticle, and the small denticles look more like lines rather than these sort of protruding beads. And this one here, it looks like it's pointing between, but this is also large denticles. So we didn't find anything interesting in there, but we'll get on to the 49s, which also have some varieties. On the 49s, we're looking for the A pointing to the large denticle. It's all large denticles, but this one is clearly pointing between. So we want to find the one where the top of that A is pointing directly at a large denticle. It's not all that likely that we're going to find it in this group of terrible looking coins, but you never know. Okay, I've scoped our terrible looking 49s, and this is pretty much what we've been seeing is the A pointing between the large denticles. That is the common variety. However, we did find one, which is the A pointing to the large denticle. So there is the A absolutely pointing to the denticle. I'll just flip it over. We'll take a peek here. It is the 1949. We'll just take a look at how terrible this coin is. You can see the corrosion all over there and almost completely obscuring King George. But this is the rare variety. This is in a terrible, terrible shape, but I actually don't have the 49 pointing to identical in my collection. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to flip this up and display it proudly until I can find one that looks much, much better than this. So in the 40s, there are actually two that I didn't have in my collection that I found in these terrible looking coins. The 1948 A between denticals version and that 1949 A2 dentical. So I flipped them up. They are terrible examples of these coins. So they're definitely just spot fillers for the moment, but I have a version of it, and that's great. I'll keep on looking out for these in my coin roll hunts if I can continue to get pennies, but happy to add them to my collection. Next up, we got a big stack of 1953s, and what we want to do here is look for the shoulder fold variety, which is the uncommon one. I actually don't have one in my collection. I have the no shoulder fold, and we'll see if we can find a variety in this stack here. So I've got one of the 53s here, and I just want to show you what we're up against. We're going to be really hard pressed to find a shoulder fold or a no shoulder fold with that kind of corrosion. But what we can do, of course, is scope it to see the lettering, because the lettering is different. I'll put this one under the scope. And what we want to look at is the I on Die Gratia. And this you can see is more of a serifed I. It flares out at the top and the bottom. And that is a no doubt no shoulder fold variety. The shoulder fold variety, the rarer one, will have a slimmer I without this sort of serif look about it. So that's what I'm going to be scoping, and I'll see if we've got anything here. Well, we're about halfway through, and we have found the shoulder fold variety. You can see how the I at the top is slim and doesn't have those serifs. And of course, you can see how terrible this coin is, and you would be really hard pressed to find it on here. But we have found it. We have found a shoulder fold 1953. We'll look and see if we have any others in here, and maybe one that's a little bit better than this terrible one. Well, I scoped them all. We didn't find any others. We just have this one terrible one here, but that is a no-doubter. Shoulder fold 1953. I'm going to flip it up, and again, I'm going to display it proudly in my collection. I've got one. Of course, I'm going to keep my eyes open for a better one, absolutely. I've got a small stack of 6 1954s. There's also a shoulder fold and no shoulder fold versions of these. The no shoulder fold was only in a proof-like state and is extremely limited, so I expect that these will all be shoulder fold. And I'll just check them to be sure, because that's what we do when we're coin roll hunting. But I don't expect that we're going to find anything crazy here. And again, we got a big stack of 1955s here, so what we're expecting to see here are a bunch of 1955 with a shoulder fold. There's an extremely rare 1955 no shoulder fold version, and that's what we're going to look for here for sure. There's another variety here in the 55s. Amongst the shoulder fold variety, there are ones with small denticles and large denticles, and you can see I've got both here. I only have one in my collection. I think I might look, I've probably got other 55s that might fit the bill and be better condition than these ones here with all the corrosion that these guys have. But here you can clearly see the different denticle sizes. Well, no surprises there with the 55s. We did not find the no shoulder fold, very rare variety. And everything else we have on the board here from 56 up to 64, there are no significant varieties that we'll be able to find here. There's a die clash on each of these with a hanging number, but on these coins, we're going to be really, really hard pressed to find any of those varieties. I might take a quick peek, see if I can find any on ones where the obverse, or the reverse is a little bit more clear, where it's possible. But in my experience, I haven't been able to see those. If I can pull it into range here, they're just, the face of these coins is so worn and damaged, you can't quite see that hanging option. Like this could potentially be one with that line, but it's in such poor shape you couldn't really tell. So we are all finished looking through my uncle's penny hoard. I have wrapped up here, or rolled up, all of that damaged copper. You can see those corroded ends. So just like I've been stacking copper on my other penny hunts, that's what I'll do here. We'll hold on to that. But we did find a few gems in the trash, so to speak. A few things that I didn't have in my collection. We found that 1948 A between identicals. So I just didn't have one in my collection. So that fills a hole. I'm sure I'll find a better one. And but until then, this is the one that's going to fill the spot in my album. The other ones that I found are more hard to come by varieties. This 1949 A identical, this one is hard to come by. I didn't have it. And I'm really happy to have found one. And also, I really will want to find a better one. But you know what? I've had this in my collection for 20 some years. I just didn't realize it. Now, it's in terrible shape, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And lastly, this 1953 shoulder fold that I also didn't have. So again, I will display that proudly in my collection and I won't complain at all. So there you go. Sometimes it just pays to go through the old stuff. Not that it pays in monetary terms, because these coins really aren't worth anything at all in this trashy condition. But for me as a collector, it's pretty exciting to find uncommon varieties just in coins that I had sitting in my collection. So I really hope you enjoyed this bit of a different video, looking through some trashed coin to see if we could find some treasure. If you did, please give the video a like. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, CAD Roll Hunter, please do that now. You'll find out when I've got new videos coming out. I have videos coming out all the time. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.